Now, if you don't know who Thomas Ng is, he is self-described as an R&B artist currently creating music out of Boston in the United States. However, the way I would prefer to describe him is an attractive man making attractive music, especially after his newest song, King.
You call me overly emotional and lacking in my confidence. You made me feel like I'm an overall incompetent human. Said you were helping out, but all you did was try to hold me down. So now I understand, no doubt, no doubt. You can talk, but I'll just tune you out. You were never a king, so please just shut your mouth. Please just shut your mouth.
Hold on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Is it a song quite on par with a masterpiece such as Jesus Is the One, I Got Depression by Zach Fox?
Bitch, you better praise God or I'm a shooting that's on God.
I'm not so sure about that one. But what I am sure about is that it is a good song with actual weight to it from its lyrics and music video. Now, a quick disclaimer. I am not a professional musician, film critic, nor a prior English major, so take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. The actual song itself is a very clean, somewhat subversive take on a Thomas Ng song. Before I talk about what I consider to be different with King relative to his other songs, let me talk about what hasn't changed. First, his vocals. Thomas has always been an excellent vocalist. For example, one song that comes to mind is Why Oh Why, with his wonderful backing vocals. His amazing back and forth with Prithvi Prajosh on Fall of September Unplugged. And Like This, which is a whole other can of worms. However, this song does in fact differ from some of his other songs. Though the song is on the slower side, which is not rare for a Thomas Ng song, it has a more punchy feel to it in comparison to some of his quote-unquote slower jams. I think one of the main contributors to this is the way that the guitar is played. It has a bit more of a plucky style rather than a soft strum. The bass feels more percussive than usual as well, and it just adds more drive to the song. The horns as well, oh my goodness, the way that they just dip in and out of the chorus so smoothly, ugh. There are also what I believe to be subtle strings in the background for some of these sections, and they add to the emotional tone, which this song definitely has. One of the things that adds to the aforementioned punchiness of the song is the use of group vocals throughout the song. It's very rare for one of his songs to start with a vocal, much less a group vocal. I don't believe he's ever even started a song with a group vocal. Usually it would start with just the instruments or instruments and a vocal. However, this time it starts with just the vocals, which adds a somewhat subversive element to it already. All of these elements add up to create a very smooth, soothing R&B song, whose subject would typically be about romance. However, this song is titled King. What's that about? Is it supposed to be about like a monarchy or something? The lyrics carry large motifs of kingship and responsibility, but seeing as we're currently in modern times and not medieval times, this is currently used as a metaphor within the song to refer to something else. The beginning lyrics set the scene. With the line, "Someone that built up kingdoms for me," it starts to indicate that this king was someone who was supposed to create a safe space for Thomas, yet it seems that they have not fulfilled said responsibility. "But there were lies made up by me" is a line that implies that Thomas was somewhat delusional in thinking that someone of such low character would ever think to fulfill responsibilities. The line, "I wasted years," says that it took a while to notice, likely due to a bias towards said king, for one reason or another. The chorus then starts off with insults hurled by the king towards Thomas and overall how he put Thomas down. The lines, "Said you were helping out, all you did was try to hold me down," perhaps says that this king berated him under the disguise of it being genuine criticism to help him grow, at least within the king's eyes. This could have potentially stemmed from disapproval of Thomas's goals. The latter part of the chorus is more of a response towards the king in hindsight now that Thomas has more experience within life. The second verse starts with the lines, "As your kingdom falls and your built up walls come crashing down on me." And I feel that these imply that Thomas suffered the burden of the king's mistakes, despite not having much fault within the situation. The walls crumbling also feed into the next line's mention of a bad disguise, as this now reveals that perhaps the king has been putting up a front this whole time. The once seemingly strong walls actually have cracks and were just a false sense of protection. The latter part of this verse implies that some of the fault might have actually been Thomas's in denying what was the truth that was laid out so clearly in front of him. The end of the song insinuates that the king tried to regain some sort of standing with Thomas by coming to some sort of understanding with the lines, "Please don't pretend that you understand who I want to be and who I truly am." But now Thomas can see through the deceit. The lyrics throughout the song tell the tale of a man who perceived himself as a king, and his arrogance in thinking what he was doing was actually right and good for Thomas in terms of growth. However, his piled up mistakes ultimately led to his downfall and desperation for some sort of redemption. It's all really just self-inflicted. In the end though, the lyrics never really specify who this king that Thomas is talking about. The music video finally reveals what is likely the true subject matter of the song. The music video starts with all the credits, so shout out to all these people. The behind the scenes video released by Thomas on his own YouTube channel made it seem like a pretty enjoyable experience, and clearly some of the product's quality could be attributed to this. The shot behind the credits shows flashing lights with a screen that looks like stocks, and transitions into a close-up shot of an aged man seeped in blue as a kid walks behind him, staring over his shoulder for a second. The child then approaches the man, who is presumably this child's father or guardian, and the lighting flashes some warmer colors as the next shot turns into the father making a sandwich for his son in some warm light. The son and father look at each other with smiles on their faces as he makes the sandwich. These shots create a juxtaposition between work and personal life. There's then a shot of Thomas singing "Used to Think You're a King" in an empty room, at least from what the viewer can see. Despite the exterior of the father presenting itself in the warm light, the flashes of blue still shroud most of his body, and he then returns to his workstation shrouded in blue after a call, as his son basks in the warm light of the kitchen. There are flashes of orange and a lighter blue, but it mostly stays a deep blue. This creates a contrast between the dad, who seems to go back into the coldness of the blue, compared to his son, who prefers to stay in the warmth of the light. It then cuts back to Thomas singing in the empty room. The next shot is a close-up of the son that shows a little bit of blue in his mostly warmly lit face, as it shows perhaps a bit of corruption in his seemingly pure mindset of just wanting some love, while also reflecting a sense of sadness in the lack of attention paid to him. Then, the next sequence starts with the son in some darkness as he sees a well-lit room with a piano in it. The slight zoom into his face tells us his curiosity has been piqued. The colors chosen for the exterior of the room are a bit blue, but it feels different to the blue his father was shrouded in. It should also be noted that the room that the son walks into with the piano seems to be shrouded in natural light. Perhaps this detail foreshadows the son's natural talent. He walks up to the piano and drags his hand over some of the keys, and you can see the pure joy as his eyes light up, just to quickly vanish due to an unknown reason. The next shot shows the reason why his face dropped, as his father walks into the room and tells him to stop because he's on the phone. The son defies this request and plays some notes to be met with some extreme retaliation from his father, as he says, "Overly emotional and lacking in your confidence." It then cuts to a completely empty room where the son is alone playing the piano, akin to the room we saw Thomas in before, likely showing the piano is somewhat an escape for the son. It then cuts to Thomas singing again in the room. The shot cuts back to real time, or I guess flashback time, with the son looking up at his father with a disappointed, sad look with a tinge of contempt. The father is then seen dragging his son away back to the table, where the next shot shows the warm light in the background going out, leaving the son in a cold, somewhat sterile environment. The ending to the sequence feels like it shows the light between the son and the father has gone out, perhaps showing the son has given up on seeking anything from his father, likely to start playing the piano more. This piano segment shows the dynamic between the son and father more clearly, as well as the motivation for the son to play the piano. The camera then tilts up as it fades into a shot of Thomas playing the guitar, heavily insinuating the identity of the son being Thomas. The intercutting of Thomas and the story of the son helps to cement this assumption, and it starts to tie connection between the video and lyrics. It is also showing his inspiration to do music. While not exactly the sole reason for starting music, it likely played a part in helping start this whole thing. The environment is once again nearly completely sterile, save for Thomas and his guitar, which seem to have a warmer light cast upon them. The next two shots show the lights blinking between blue and orange, likely symbolizing the balance between focus on work and comfort and enjoyment Thomas finds in music, only for the next shot to show an error having popped up on screen in the reflection of Thomas's glasses. The next shot fully reveals what's on the screen, and it's the oh-so-familiar phrase, "overly emotional," showing self-doubt that was sown in by the criticism from his father. The next shot shows Thomas attempting to move on with his music session, but he gets distracted by something off screen. The next shot shows it's an image of his younger self in the dark. This image likely serves as a reminder for who he's doing this for, who he wrote this song for, and it continues to power through, finishing the sequence, at least for now, with a shot from further away with himself lit in a somewhat deep red surrounded by blue, save for the lamp on the desk that still emanates a soft yellow. This specific blend of colors in this scene creates a feeling of wanting to prove others wrong, with hints of spite from how deep the red is, alongside the childhood warmness he still harbors deeper inside from the soft yellow from the lamp. This sequence has the same intercutting as it does the previous two, except this time the scene it cuts to is the same one in the focused on sequence, as shown with the keyboard and window location. The difference is that the scene that is being intercut to is framed wider and with mostly natural and warm tones. This sequence can be interpreted as Thomas's current mindset, one where warmth is present, but so is the concept of accepting nature. This shows growth out of the mindset imposed on him by his father, so much to the point where other influences have reached within his mind now. The next sequence starts with King.mp3 playing on Thomas's phone, with the next shots showing that he's in the car with his father, likely anxious to see the reaction to his music from someone who seemed like he disapproved of such. The father looks stern, likely because of some sense of disapproval, yet there still seems to be a somber expression hidden behind this initial sternness. Maybe it's a facade the father decided he needed to keep up even though he can recognize the errors in his previous ways. And then cuts to Thomas singing in the empty room he was in the beginning of the video. The next two shots splice the line overly emotional and lacking in confidence between the son in the empty room with the piano and the father in the car. This shows that the father is fine using the line that has affected Thomas to such a degree that he can parrot it word for word through the vessel of his younger self. And yet his father continues to disapprove despite the progression from Thomas just playing the piano. Thomas then looks in the rearview mirror to see his younger self staring at him from the back seats, likely representing the withheld resentment he's had for his father's expression of disapproval. The next shot shows that Thomas from the previous sequence, the playing guitar one, gets up and walks out of his sequence into the room with just the son and the piano and appears to overlook and encourage his younger self's playing, showing that that's all he really wanted, some acknowledgement. It then cuts back to a shot of Thomas looking fed up in the car, looking out the window, with the next shot showing him getting out of the moving car, showing the extent Thomas will go to in order to immediately distance himself from such a looming aspect within his life. The final shots show Thomas vibing with his younger self looking more content with acknowledgement from someone else. As the lines "please don't pretend like you understand who I want to be and who I truly am" play over the shot of him in this open room, I think it indicates that his father doesn't understand his newfound mindset he's formed for himself. The very final shot shows Thomas singing as he was in the beginning with his younger self playing in the back. This shot slowly zooms in and focuses solely on current day Thomas, showing that he is the one who will decide who he truly is, and that's fine. This music video takes the lyrics and clarifies its allegory of kingship as it pertains to a family dynamic. The combination of sound, lyrics, and music video takes this beyond an experience just for the ears. As I said before, this song is not necessarily a masterpiece of the highest degree, but if you enjoy this genre of music, I could not suggest it more. Anyways, King is still only tied for second in terms of my favorite Thomas Ng songs. Paranoia is better, don't even try and argue with me.